Let's look and see what Bible scripture says about 9/11. So we're going to start with Isaiah 30 because it has the most obvious reference to the events of 9/11, in particular, the Great Towers falling. So what it says in Isaiah 30, verse 25 is, "And there shall be upon every high mountain rivers and streams of waters in the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall." So when the events of 9/11 took place with the World Trade Center towers, there's more than one tower that fell, possibly three. It's been a while since I looked at this, but this has a plural of towers, and this is when the towers fell, and it was the day of great slaughter. Many people died, so clearly this could be talking about it. Let's see what else it says. Oh, as far as the word mountain, it's a Bible symbol of kingdom, kingdoms and nations. Mountains and hills are kingdoms and nations. Okay. Now, what is the symbol of rivers flowing on every high mountain, on every high kingdom and nation? Well, perhaps that will become clear in time. All right, so I'm going to rewind from verse 25 to verse 13, and it seems to be describing the towers falling at free fall speed, at speed of gravity, and being broken into bits and pieces of dust at the same time. It seemed like it all happened suddenly at the same time. The whole building just turned into little tiny bits and pieces, just like taking a big piece of pottery and shattering it on the road really quickly, and all at once it just bursts in tiny little pieces. So this is what it says, etc. As a breach ready to fall, etc. A high wall, whose breaking cometh suddenly at an instant, etc. He shall break it as the breaking of a potter's vessel that is broken in pieces, etc. Not be found, etc. Assured. So not even a shard of pottery will be found big enough to scoop water with. It goes into more detail. So this event happened. These buildings fell at free fall speed when one of the top people said, "Pull it," and then it fell. And that's an engineering term where they set off demolitions. So this is a well-known event, and that's discussed in other parts of the prophecies. But continuing on here, going from verse 14 on to verse 17, it says, "Till ye be left as, etc., an ensign on a hill." Till ye be left as an ensign on the hill, which is a standard, a flag on a hill. So who's going to be left as a flag on the hill? Judah, the kingdom of Judah. So Isaiah, he was alive after the kingdom of Israel fell. So what was left was the kingdom of Judah. That's what he's talking about. So Judah's going to be an ensign or a standard, a flag. And not just any individual in the kingdom of Judah, but the kingdom of Judah. That is, King David has many, many prophecies about his house. This is the house that will last forever. Look up the symbolism of the word house. What is it really talking about? Is it talking about where he literally lived? No. Is it talking about his kingdom? No. Look it up if you don't know. It's very important to be informed. I'm not going to explain every little detail. I invite the listener to find out, because this is vitally important to understanding, figuring out what happened in 9/11. Why was it so important? Why is there even Bible prophecy about it? This is key. Till Judah be left as an ensign on a hill. An ensign, a flag on a kingdom, a hill. After that it states, etc. God of judgment, blessed are all they that wait for him. Etc. God of judgment. Well, what's judgment? That's measurement. You take a measurement of, let's say, how long is this tree here? You're judging it. You're measuring it. So this is about not measuring just anything, but it's measuring time. It's measuring time. So what's that called when you measure time and you predict that something's going to happen at a certain year? That's what's going on here. And the fruit of all this, the ultimate point, the end point, it gives you the word. Just pay attention. Etc. God of judgment, blessed are all they that wait for him. That wait. This is about measuring time, coming to the end, which is the end, is what happened in 9/11. There's more about 9/11, just buildings falling, obviously. A whole lot more took place. So let's recap. It talks about the breach, a breach in a high wall. It mentions the word high wall, those words. It talks about it breaking. Its breaking comes suddenly, at an instant. And it will break like a potter's vessel in pieces. Not even a shard will be found. That's how the buildings will fall. The high wall, it calls the buildings a high wall. So, let's see. And it talks about a flag on a hill. This is a repeated concept over and over. Whenever there's a prophecy about 9/11, usually it mentions a flag. There's going to be a flag that's raised. In this case, it's on a kingdom or a hill, the beginning of a kingdom. Ooh, how interesting. Later, it may mature into a full mountain, God willing. So, and what is this flag going to be? It tells us what's going to be on the flag. Let's read it again. Etc. Till Judah, till the kingdom of Judah be left as an ensign on a hill. A flag, a standard on a hill. A standard. It has many meanings, like an inch, like a meter. It's a standard of judgment, standard of measurement, a standard of defining, measuring, and discovering reality, testing it so that we can be certain. Well, a flag has different meanings too. You look at a flag, it has like a symbol on it. It represents the kingdom. It may be the same symbol that's on the king's finger, that seal that he uses to mark the documents. That's important because, if someone gets a document from the king, it has to be obeyed. And how do you know it's really from the king, though? Okay, let's continue on. They use the word blessed. Reminds me of Daniel, last chapter, 1335 number. Well, that's part of this time measurement. That's really important. So, let's continue. Okay, it describes for several verses being rightly guided, that is, spiritually righteous and correct guidance from God, being under the covenant. Verse 25 talks about, and there shall be upon every high mountain. It mentions hills also. Rivers and streams of waters in the day of the great slaughter when the towers fall. Okay, so the main part here that I'm paying attention to is that, until we can decipher what this thing about the rivers are in the kingdoms, every high kingdom, royal kingdom, till we can figure that out, today it's pretty clear what is very likely to be the day of the great slaughter when the towers fall. I mean, towers fall all throughout history. Kingdoms are invaded, walls are taken down, towers fall. Big deal. But 9/11 is special. It set a precedent. It had never happened before. It was in the modern world. A new type of justification for imperial expansion took place that hadn't existed before. And it was all over the world. It was a whole new type of plunder with a whole new type of justification. So it also mentions the next verse, etc. The light of the sun shall be sevenfold, etc. In the day that the Lord bindeth up the breach of his people and healeth the stroke of the wound. The day that the Lord bindeth up the breach of his people and healeth the stroke of their wound. Okay, so the kingdom of Judah. They rejected God, they rejected the prophets, they chose idols instead. They utterly failed. But for whatever reason, God is very merciful. And he put this what on the standard, what on the flag? The kingdom of Judah. Which is, King David is the king of it. And there is a lot of prophecy that's highly worth investigating about his bloodline. The bloodline that will never end. It will last for eternity. It's the family tree of it. See for yourself. The family tree of eternity, it will never end. There will always be a king to rule on the throne. It's repeated in the Bible. It's in different places. It's emphasized. It's really important. Because a lot of people want to say this thing came to an end. It didn't. Okay. So that's what's on the flag. The kingdom of Judah. It says it right here. Verse 17. Till ye be left as an ensign on a hill. So there's something that took place on 9/11, or at least the year 9/11. What is that? What's that stand for? September 11th, 2001. And for whatever reason, this verse may refer to it, etc. The light of the sun shall be sevenfold, etc. In the day that the Lord bindeth up the breach of his people and healeth the stroke of their wound. So what's the breach of the people? Look, it's not likely that most of the listeners are really going to get the big picture here, unless they're studied and in the other prophecies accurately. In the history of religion, it seems like the vast majority have no idea what took place after, maybe the year 1000 AD. But it didn't just quit. There's a lot more that took place. But there is a breach of God's people. People reject the covenant. People reject God. They reject the prophets. It's history. It just keeps repeating. Well, something happened in this year. It doesn't state very clearly, but apparently it has something to do with the kingdom of Judah. And some event happened that healed those who rejected God and rejected the covenant. So, let's see. Just to make note of this, looking at this prophecy, this one in particular, verse 26, it mentions 7 times, sevenfold, occurring before this great year, 9/11. And, well, if you subtract sevenfold, it takes you to the second decree. So, if you're familiar with some answered questions, there were 4 decrees to rebuild. The first one involved Joshua, the high priest, and Zerubbabel, and they laid the foundation of the temple, but the enemies prevented them from building it, and they rested for a while from that. And then the second decree was given a few years later, and it seems like it was given maybe 16 years later, actually. Around 16 years later, 15 years later. And that was 520 BC, a well-known, well-established date in the history books. It's not questioned very much. 520 BC, when Zerubbabel and Joshua, the high priest, now Zerubbabel was a descendant of King David. He was the ruling kingly bloodline individual. And they went and started building the temple again. And Haggai verse 2 gives more information about this. It says that Zerubbabel will be like a seal, a signet ring. Oh, like the symbol that's on the sign. Yeah. See for yourself. Read for yourself. Think about it. What could it mean? What is this? Oh, Zerubbabel is a descendant of King David too. He's part of the bloodline of King David, part of the Messianic Christ bloodline that all the prophecies are about. That's going to last forever. This family tree. And if Zerubbabel is a seal, like the symbol on the emblem of the kingdom, as Haggai says, clearly we're getting somewhere. We're figuring out what this flag is about. Verse 17 refers to it as the kingdom of Judah. And Haggai 2 refers to it as Zerubbabel, the male sperm king descendant of King David, that he is the seal, which is quite off. It's often the same symbol as the one that's on the flag. So the symbol of the kingdom. This is what's going to save the people. The Messianic bloodline, the Christ bloodline to King David. The fulfillment of the prophecies of King David, which are that the lineage of King David, one, is going to have a throne. It's going to last forever. And 2, one day they'll bring justice to the world. There may be more about it. Okay, so that's Isaiah 30. We're going to go back to Isaiah 5. Now, Isaiah 5 is really important because it has prophecy that it also mentions this flag. This flag is key because it says about healing. It's about healing the breach of God's people, healing the breach of the broken covenant. It heals the stroke of their wound. Okay. I want healing. Don't you want healing? I think the whole world needs some healing, especially right now. Shoot. We all need serious healing. Okay. So, just to focus on the part about the flag, verse 26, he will lift up an ensign to the nations. Same flag, right? He will lift up an ensign to the nations, etc., and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. There's so much to this. But I just want to point out for now that it talks about the flag. So it's related to Baha'u'llah's quote about the limbs of mankind quaking and the standard being unfurled. Okay, so what's this say? Isaiah 5. What else does it say about 9/11? Well, Isaiah 5 opens up talking about a vineyard and the good man, the husbandman, he planted grapes in it, he put a wall around it, and then the vineyard produced wild grapes. They weren't any good. We can't blame him. So again, there's this theme of a wall. The wall involved the fourth decree to rebuild, and that was the decree to rebuild the wall. That happened in the well-established date of 444 BC. The decree to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. Very important, prophetic. All those numbers, all those decree dates are very important, very significant, matter extremely. So from the wall, you go forward 3 prophetic days, and it takes you to 636, 637 AD, when, now this is what happened in history. The Roman Empire had kicked out the Jews from Jerusalem, banned them, banished them. They weren't allowed in. And after 500 years, 500 years of this, or 501 years of this exile, the Muslims invaded Jerusalem. They conquered it, and they allowed the Jews back into their land. Well, thank God for the Muslims. How awful they were kicked out for that long. 500 years is a long time to be kicked out of your promised land. And you know, as part of their covenant, they have to go to Jerusalem every year. So this is pretty amazing because exactly 3 days, 3 prophetic days after the wall was decreed to be built in 444 BC, well, that's the year when the Muslims let the Jews back in after being banished for 500 years or 501 years. That is amazing. What are the coincidences? What is it a chance? Is it a coincidence? What are the chances? It doesn't seem very likely. It's a big, major prophetic number. 3 days. 1,080 years. So from there, you can add 1335, the blessed is he number in Daniel, and a moon. 1335 and a moon. And it takes you to 2001 AD, the 9/11. So they were blessed. Okay. And the moon is pretty fascinating too. It has its own utility. A lot of prophecy ends with the moon, even though it's not stated directly and clearly. But it does state it directly and clearly in the first page of the Bible. The sun and the moon are for signs. You got to use "and the moon" to get it, to get the big picture of it and its importance. Just a little FYI. This is what I found in my researches. Many, many prophecies. You add that 30 at the end, and something really big happens. So let's see. We're going to continue with verse 18. Chapter 5, verse 18 of Isaiah is, "Woe unto them that draw iniquity." So can you visualize somebody pulling a cart full of junk, just pulling it with a rope, struggling, pulling it up a hill? That's a difficult task. Well, there's some guys on 9/11 who did some pretty bad stuff. And they were like pulling a cart, or pulling a wheelbarrow full of sin, full of poop. pulling it up a hill. Boy, it was loaded too. Just pulling that rope. And it's related to the term when he said to pull it, then the buildings fell. It's an engineering term. So here's the quote: "Woe unto them that draw iniquity, etc., as and sin as etc. with a rope, with a etc. rope, with a cart rope." Paraphrase, using the same words: "Woe unto them that draw iniquity and sin as with a rope." And he said to pull it. So these guys, they did something really bad. Whatever happened on 9/11, it was bad. Those terrorists, oh man. Okay, so and more took place too, because what happened as a result of the buildings falling is entire nations were declared as terrorist nations, and they were invaded. And I don't know, maybe the poppies growing in the Afghanistan fields, maybe they were terrorists also. Those dangerous little weapons of mass destruction. Actually, poppies are weapons of mass destruction. If you think about heroin and how bad it is, the curse on mankind, those are weapons of mass destruction. Afghanistan really had weapons of mass destruction. Oh man, the problem is it was almost wiped out. I mean, it wasn't being grown at the time until I'm not giving a history lesson right now. I don't want to go there. That's yeah. So let's see. Verse 29 says, "They shall, etc., lay hold on the prey." And when I think of that, I think of the poppy and the oil, poppies and the oil, all that morphine and oxycodone and heroin, awful cursed stuff. Its name is even cursed. Wretched is the user, petrified is the soul. You want to stay away from that. Because in the end, after using heroin for a while, the user is more sensitive to pain than he would have been had he stayed away from it. Can you imagine how cursed such a thing is? I mean, he's in pain in the first place. That's why he's taking it. But down the road, he's going to be even more sensitive to the pain. That's crazy stuff, man. You don't want to take that in your body. That's a curse. Yeah, it's the number one, most popular narcotic in the world. So whoever controls the poppy and the oil and the natural gas, they have a lot of cash. They have a lot of cash they can do dark stuff with, because it's underground. It's not recorded in the banks. It's dirty money. They got to launder it before they can do stuff with it. But they do. Yeah. There's a whole history of, look, what's up with the president at the time of 9/11? Who's he the son of? And what was he the head of? What organization, what body was he the head of? And what were they doing? What were they selling in America? What were they involved in? Already, before 9/11. I mean, these guys were involved with this stuff. It's well known. I'm sure the the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies made a lot of money off oxycodone. But look at what happened in the end. Especially West Virginia, where I live, a lot of people are suffering. A lot of people were addicted to that stuff. But they were addicted legally. And then they took the carpet from under everyone's feet when they found out that it was addictive. And now they're having to turn to cheap hard drugs that are illegal. It's horrible. Terrible situation. But someone made a lot of money. So that was the prey. They shall lay hold on the prey. Verse 29. That was a result of all this. So it says that after it talks about the towers falling. I mean, it says that after the big picture, all this, the flag was raised up, and iniquity was and sin was drawn with a rope. They said pull it, drawn with a rope. Yeah. And it opens up with talking about this great wall, the wall around the vineyard. Well, look at chapter 30. It talks about a wall that's being breached and falls at a very high wall, falls at free fall speed, breaks like a potter's vessel, a piece of pottery, all at once, not even assured. So, is this describing the events of 9/11? It seems very related. It's not a stretch. So let's go over it again. You got the vineyard, it's walled in. The vineyard is walled in. What's the vineyard about? The kingdom of Judah. That's the vineyard, the kingdom of Judah. King David, the royal bloodline. So in Greek, they called it Christ. In Hebrew, they call it Messiah, messianic bloodline. Some say, well, Luke shows that Jesus Christ's bloodline descended from King David through King David's son, which was the brother of Solomon. He was the brother of King Solomon, not the ruling bloodline, but he was a prophet. Nathan was a prophet, the prophetic bloodline. So, what about the ruling bloodline? Well, that was fulfilled later. That was shown to be to lead to Baha'u'llah by Mirza Abu Fadl, a famous Baha'i historian, a long time ago. This is recorded in the Dawnbreakers. But continuing on, finishing the recap here, you have the kingdom of Judah, the vineyard. It's encircled with a wall. It's protected, 444 BC. All right, so it talks about drawing sin with a rope, with a cart rope. And he said, pull it and buildings fell. You see how it's related to the chapter 30 when it talks about the free fall of the very high wall. All of a sudden, like a potter's vessel, it shattered. Well, verse 25 here says, etc., and the hills did tremble. It's like the limbs of mankind quaked. The hills did tremble. So these are the nations and kingdoms of the world. They trembled. Why? Why did the nations and kingdoms of the world tremble? Well, look what happened. In the mass media all over the world, they're talking about nations being terrorist nations. That's never happened before. And look what happened. They just invaded them as if it was morally right. So yeah, the hills trembled. But someone else, a good person, he will lift up an ensign, a standard to the nations, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. Okay, so Baha'u'llah has prophecies about Al-Mustagath, who will come in the year 2001, and he will be a king because Baha'u'llah says that he himself, Baha'u'llah, swears fealty to the one who will come in Al-Mustagath in 2001. So if Baha'u'llah is the subject to this great king of 2001, perhaps he's the person who puts out this ensign and is the nightingale of paradise that warbles its melody. And perhaps it's going to happen in 2001. This isn't a stretch. You have to look at the quote in Gleanings for more information on this. I'll get to it later. But this says he will lift up an ensign, a flag, a standard. We know what's on the ensign. It's the kingdom of Judah. Was said in chapter 30. He will lift up an ensign to the nations and will hiss. You got to use your intellect here because the Bible says, be ye wise as serpents. We use the scripture to define these things. He will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. So if the earth was a human being, where would the end of it be? It's not a human being. The earth is some sort of sphere, but it's not a perfect sphere either. It's spinning. It's flatter at the ends, at the poles. So where's the end of the earth? End of the world? Maybe the North Pole? Verse 29, they shall, etc., lay hold on the prey, poppies in the oil. Verse 30, etc., roaring of the sea, etc., land, etc., light is darkened in the heavens thereof. This is describing the events of 2015. Because the sun and the moon aligned with the north pole of the earth, the end of the earth, the end of the world. Extremely rare event. Extremely rare event. And it happened in our lifetime, 2015, within an hour of 9/11. A biblical hour. I'm not talking about a literal hour. A biblical hour is 15. So let's see. And as far as the roaring of the sea in 2015, believe me, there was a lot of roaring of the sea. There were 12 storms in a row in 66 days, and that's rare. That happened during the time of the solar eclipse too. The extremely rare solar eclipse. It's like the finger God pointing to the end of the earth, saying, "Look at this." Because the first page, remember, says the sun and the moon are for signs, and also the stars. And what happened in 2015? The sun went dark, the moon went dark, the stars came out in the middle of the day during the solar eclipse, and then they fell just about as soon as they appeared. When the solar eclipse continued, when the moon passed beyond the sun, they fell, they disappeared. Daylight came back, and there was a ring in the sky, a wedding ring with a diamond where the sunlight was shining through. They call it like a ring, like the symbol of the bridegroom and the bride coming together. So this is a tabernacle in the sky that cannot be destroyed. Its peg can never be pulled up. What other tabernacle in heaven, what other temple in heaven exists that cannot be destroyed? This isn't some like airy-fairy, pretend imagination, fanciful idea. This is real. This stuff actually took place and was prophesied of. Matthew 24, it's all right there. It opens up talking about the end of the world, when Jesus is going to return far in the future. And the signs given are, well, the sun will go dark, the moon will go dark, and the stars will fall. Well, this is referring to that too. Verse 30, etc., roaring of the sea, etc., land, etc., light is darkened in the heavens thereof. Okay. Oh, and if you look at verse 26, it talks about the end of the earth. Because whoever this El Mustagoth is, who's going to raise an ensign to the nations, etc., it says he's going to hiss unto them from the end of the earth. The Lord's going to hiss unto them from the end of the earth, which is the North Pole. And to hiss is the symbol of it's the noise of the serpent, the onomatopoeia. And the Bible scripture says, "Be ye wise as serpents." So this involves the intellect, the use of the intellect, the use of wisdom, rational thought, and reason, which is how we're approaching all this. This verse is directly related to a verse that is 2 chapters away. So perhaps all this stuff is related, chapters 5 through 7. We'll get to that soon. But that verse doesn't involve hissing for the end of the earth. It involves hissing for another end entirely. All right, so let's continue. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1 states, etc., the Lord sitting upon a throne high, and his train filled the temple. So the Hebrew word that's translated train here, it's hanging. It means hanging. So what on a man hangs? Is there anything on a man, any kind of body part that hangs from him? Well, that's what's going to fill the temple. How is that possible? Because if you look at the Hebrew temple, the king, like King David, he wasn't allowed in the Holy of Holies. He wasn't a part of the temple. He protected the temple. That was his job, to protect it, protect his kingdom. But But he wasn't a part of it. So why does this say here that the king, the Lord sitting upon a throne, the king, the high king, your royal highness, his hanging is going to fill the temple? Well, to understand this, to truly understand this, it's important to read the will and testament of Baha'u'llah, the descendant of King David, the blood, male sperm descendant, the bloodline, the royal bloodline of King David. So, let's see what happened. Well, there was this great exile, and the ruling bloodline king, descendant of King David, was exiled too into Babylon. And Babylon is like Iran, Iraq, that area, more Iraq. And while Zerubbabel did return to rebuild the temple, it didn't say he stayed there. The Zerubbabel was from Babylon. They had a generation or two in there, 70 years. So that's where he was. And according to the historical records of the exilarchs, the male bloodline ruling descendancy from King David that lived in Babylon, that were exiled, this bloodline was traced to Baha'u'llah, and in his will and testament, and his son's will and testament, the house of God is redefined. There's a new covenant. Just like when Jesus came, there was a new covenant. They call it the New Testament. Covenant, testament. It's about a promise. You know, testament is a promise. You know, I bear witness that this happened. I give verbal testimony. Yes, in court, verbal testimony matters. It's proof. Well, a covenant means promise. So this is a new covenant. Jesus gave a new covenant. Well, Baha'u'llah gave a new covenant. It's his will and testament, and Abdu'l-Baha's will and testament. And when you read it, you can see for yourself with your own eyes what it says. I'm not allowed, nobody's allowed to give their own opinion. It's written in there. But it's clearly, directly, to me, I see a relationship here. I'm not trying to define God for anybody, but this is really important because this is healing the breach of God's people. This is healing the breach of the faithful. All of this, these two covenant documents, and how it's defined. So it says, etc., the Lord sitting upon a throne high, and his train filled the temple. His hanging. Okay, next verse. Above it, etc., the seraphims. Okay, above this temple, this new temple, are seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. So with 2, they covered their eyes. With 2, they flew. With 2, they covered their feet? This is holy stuff. It's very holy. Well, in chapter 7, it talks about the birth of Jesus, the virgin that will conceive. There's this prophecy. And verse 18 talks about, etc., it'll hiss for the fly that is in the uttermost parts of the rivers of Egypt. This is important to meditate on, to research and investigate. Because it says, use your intellect. It says hiss. That's what the serpent does. It's the symbol of the intellect. Hiss. It'll hiss for the fly. And what are flies associated with? What are flies associated with as far as the uttermost parts? The uttermost parts. It's something to meditate on. Think about deeply. So, if the rivers of Egypt were a human being, Where would the utter... Okay, so continuing on here. For the fly that is in the uttermost parts of the Nile River, because the Nile River is the big river in Africa that the rivers of Egypt flow into. And it flows north and it empties into the Mediterranean Sea. And where it empties into the Mediterranean Sea, there's a delta, which is a triangle. It's like the Great Pyramid of Egypt. It's shaped like a pyramid. A delta, a triangle, a pyramid. It's the same thing. This river has a big delta, a big triangle. If you look at it on a map, you can see. Well, at the apex of the delta, or the top of the pyramid, what's there? A sign of God. The biggest, most massive, heaviest building on earth there ever was and ever will be. And even today, biggest building on earth. It's a sign of God. And it's located at the top of the delta. This is important. Visualize it. Look on a map. Draw it out. At the apex, put the circle. Put the circle with the radii around it. Like on the dollar bill. It's the sign on the dollar bill. Look at the back of the dollar bill. You'll see the Great Pyramid with the all-seeing eye. Does it have radii around it? Like the sun, when they draw a sun, the symbol of it? Well, this is referring to the uttermost parts of this river. It's referring to a fly being attracted to it. So, if you do your research, if you're on your watch, if you see for yourself, and this is well worth researching into, I find it useful. Like, let's see. Let's zoom in here. Now that my image is moving around, look at the middle of the screen. See that sun? It's the all-seeing eye with radii around it. But that's not what flies are attracted to. On a human body, flies are attracted to poop. So, in the nethermost parts of the human body, the anus is at the top, and then you have this pyramid. It's the shape of a pyramid. When somebody's bending over and their legs are spread, and this is a perfect pyramid going all the way to the top, and it meets at the anus. This picture is on every human all over the world. This diagram, this visualization, this image, and this is what's on our dollar bill for a reason. This is mirrored on the map of Egypt at the very topmost, at the uttermost ends of the Nile. So it's the river delta. And at the apex of the delta is the Great Pyramid of Egypt. That's the eye. You see? That's what this is referring to. It has to do with the hanging of a man, because men have this pyramid too, where the scrotum is and the sperm, the seed. The Bible refers to sperm as seed. We use the Bible symbology. And this is the lineage of the king. See for yourself. It's right there. It's all tied together. So this is what's going to fill the temple. And this is what you see. If the human is bending over and is nude, his legs are slightly spread, this is what you'll see when a human blesses something. So the word blessed, Strong's 1290, well worth looking into. It means knee, and to kneel, get on one's hands and knees and bend down. And this is how one physically blesses the Lord. And when this takes place, this triangle symbol with the all-seeing eye at the top, the anus, it's displayed. It's a very powerful symbol. And it is a metaphor and a mirror and a diagram of the uttermost ends of the rivers of Egypt, the Nile River, the Delta, with the Great Pyramid at the top. That's where it's located, in this river delta. Also, the location of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the sign of God, the witness of God, is at a plateau. This big elevational drop off, separation of Lower Egypt from Upper Egypt elevation wise. So Upper Egypt is higher, and it's in the south, and Lower Egypt is elevation wise, it's lower than Upper Egypt. It's like a plateau. It's in the north because the river flows north. So this is an ancient inner border. Normally, when a nation has a border, people think, oh, it's the border that surrounds the nation. But this is actually an inner border. So the Great Pyramid of Egypt is actually in the middle. It's in the midst of the nation of Egypt, and it's also on the border, which is like a riddle. Well, this riddle is referred to in Isaiah 19:19, where it talks about the Great Pyramid of Egypt being a witness to the Lord. And how is this a witness to the Lord? In many ways. In many ways. This is something well worth researching. Professor Piazzi Smith Royale wrote books about the prophecy in stone of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. It's related to all this in an amazing, most wondrous way, including the year 2001 and 2015. They're predicted at the same location in different ways. So they're the most prominent place in the entirety of the prophecy in stone, the timeline, the calendar in stone. They are I won't get into all the details right now, but it's highly fascinating, well worth researching, and very fruitful if you research it independently. Piazzi Smith's books, the entirety of his books. But this says in Isaiah 7:18, he'll hiss for the fly that is in the uttermost parts of the rivers of Egypt, of the Nile. So there you have it. This hissing is repeated elsewhere. And that is related to the event that will take place at the North Pole in 2015. Within 1 hour, it's 15 years. A biblical hour is 15 years. And that's 2015. Not 9/11, but 2015. So let's look at Baha'u'llah's prophecy now. Okay, before we look at Baha'u'llah's prophecy in Gleanings, LVIII, tells us that the symbol of the kingdom, the symbol of the flag, it tells us what it is. So look at the bottom of the screen. It says the standard of his kingdom, the standard of his kingdom, which is the flag of his kingdom. What is the standard of his kingdom? It's right here. Our house. Baha'u'llah's house. So study the Hebrew word for house, and you'll see this is yet another confirmation that the standard, the symbol on the standard of God's kingdom is the messianic lineage. Again, what did the Bible scripture say? It was the kingdom of Judah. It referred to it as what else? Zerubbabel's being a seal of Zerubbabel. This is the lineage of King David, which is also Baha'u'llah's house. So this is the standard. This is what's on the flag, the standard of God's kingdom. So let's see what Baha'u'llah's prophecy is now. Okay. Oh. Okay, Baha'u'llah's prophecy about all this is LXI. Gleanings, LXI. The world is in travail. So this talks about the trouble that the world is in, and apparently it's going to climax in 2001, or something's going to happen in 2001. Let's see. It says, when the appointed hour is come. Now, an hour again is 15. In 2015, that was when the sign at the end of the earth took place. Again, that involved hissing, and the hissing is also related to the nethermost regions of the rivers of Egypt, which is also related to the hanging of the king, the royal bloodline, the flag. Well, it says, when the appointed hour is come, there shall suddenly appear that which shall cause the limbs of mankind to quake. Then and only then will the divine standard be unfurled, and the nightingale of paradise warble its melody. So the Bible verse referred to the mountains and the hills will shake. And that is a symbol of nations, whether they're new nations or old nations, they're going to quake all over the world. And that's what took place. The limbs of mankind, this is another symbol for this, quaked in the year 2001 with the events of 9/11. And this says, related to that, which is also mirrored in the Bible verse, the two are related so clearly and directly. These things will quake, these things will shake, and then the flag will be unfurled. They both state it. One's in the Bible and one's in Baha'u'llah's prophecy here. Then and only then will the divine standard be unfurled, and the nightingale of paradise warble its melody. So again, Baha'u'llah talks about Al-Mustagath, him who will come in 2001, who will be a king, and this king will be so high that even Baha'u'llah swore fealty to him before he was even born. And this king, let's see what it says. Apparently he's going to be descended from King David too. I mean, that's an assumption, but somehow there's going to be a connection to King David, because that's what's on the flag. The kingdom of Judah, according to the Bible verse, the lineage of the ruling bloodline descendant of King David, Zerubbabel, who was the seal, according to Haggai 2, this bloodline lineage. It talks about the hanging of God that's going to fill the temple. This is the sperm, the male sperm descendancy, and the testicles that hang from a man. When a man bends over, his legs are slightly spread. You got that great pyramid of Egypt. You got that pyramid with the all-seeing eye. This is all related. It's all the symbolism. It just keeps being repeated. It's the symbolism of the messianic Christ bloodline. And the prophecies in the Bible state that it will never end. There will always be a king to sit on King David's throne. And that someday it will bring justice to the world. Well, that's what we need. Because 9/11, the events of 9/11 clearly show this was desperately needed. So, 2015, again, the appointed hour, 2015, is within an hour of 2001. That's going forward in time. And the appointed hour going forward in time from 2001, from 9/11. Well, if you go back in time, that would be something to think about too. That would complete a month, a moon. Again, there's that moon that shows up in prophecy. And all this is profoundly related, profoundly amazing, big picture to grasp, to meditate on, to think about all the different scripture about this event, things that are related to it. What could it be? What's this about? I'm still discovering it myself. Who is Al-Mustaqath? Who came in 2001? Who was this king? What is this flag? We know what's on the flag, the lineage of King David and Baha'u'llah. And how does it heal? How does it heal? Because we all need healing. Most of the adults in America are in pain. Large majority of them. That's why they turn to those drugs. We all need healing. This is a healing message here. It's a message of love, real love, not some fairy tale notion of it. So the limbs of mankind will quake. Well, the nations did quake when entire nations, Muslim nations, were declared to be terrorist nations with weapons that could kill everybody in all the world and dangerous places that needed to be. I mean, this type of stuff is very manipulative. It causes fear and terror, real terror. Talk about quaking. The limbs of mankind quaking. You can see like a man's knees shaking in fear and terror. Where were the towers? Who counted the towers? That's chapter 33. So then and only then, when this quaking took place, then and only then, 2001, this standard, the divine standard, it was unfurled. And the nightingale of paradise warbled its melody. I find it interesting it says nightingale of paradise because, Baha'is know this tablet, the tablet of Ahmad. A lot of Baha'is have memorized it because it's so special. It has such great promises and rewards for those who recite it. Well, look at what it opens up with. He is the king, the all-knowing, the wise. Lo, the nightingale of paradise sings on what? What is this tree of eternity? Of all the trees in the world, the family trees, of all the individuals in the world, is there a tree with prophecy about it that's going to last for eternity? A ruling bloodline? A kingship ruling bloodline that's going to last forever? I'm aware of only one in Bible prophecy. It's the Messianic bloodline. Isn't that what this whole prayer is about, the Tablet Ahman? It opens up with it anyways. You got this king. He's all-knowing and wise. You know, I got to wonder just how high Shoghi Effendi was. How high Abdu'l-Baha was. They call him the mystery of God. Abdu'l-Baha is the descendant of Baha'u'llah. What did he know? What was the limit of his knowledge? I don't know. I just don't know. It makes me wonder. He is the king, the all-knowing, the wise, and then lo, like behold, the nightingale of paradise singeth upon the twigs of the tree of eternity. And yes, Abdu'l-Baha is descended from King David too, through this royal Oxon branch of the tree of David, the house of David. He's a branch. And the twigs are the very end of it. So in Abdu'l-Baha's life, in his lifetime, he was at the very end of the twig, the end of the tree. And he was the little bird singing on there. But that tree just keeps growing in time. And there will be a new twig at the end of it next year and the year next. So you got this growing in time of the family tree. The root of the tree might be David's forefather, but the twig of it is today. The twig of it in Abdu'l-Baha's time was that day. It changes. So we know what this is referring to. To get the big picture, you have to read the Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha, and how the house of God was defined. Be freed from the breach and to heal, as the Bible prophecy stated. See how all this comes together? So this is why 9/11 was important. It was prophesied of. Baha'u'llah prophesied of it before 1900 AD. His prophecy has been around a long time. And obviously it's clearly related to the biblical prophecies about 9/11 and what would take place with Al-Bustagath. It's all vitally important for healing and be firm in the covenant.